Y'all ready?
Nope.
Let's do it. Yo, Just a Thought podcast. We are back with another one. I am your host, Ray. I got my co-host here today, Andre. Andre, how have you been,
Mhm.
man?
I've been well, man. I want to say again, thank you for coordinating with me. I'm down to the wire when it comes to like the wedding and like a lot of changes are going on right now. So I appreciate, you know, your flexibility and everything. I've been real well. I've been reading more. I've been doing a lot of things that I enjoy. I've been chilling. How have you been doing?
I've been doing good. What book are you reading right now?
So the book I just read was on anxiety and how to pretty much kind of categorize your anxiousness. A lot of people have anxiety, but they don't know how to like categorize it and deal with it. So it kind of breaks
Mm-hmm.
down like the different types that you could have and like gives you solutions to like work through those like moments. But I can definitely share the book. Actually, I've read over here. Put the name of it. Just give me a second.
Okay, I never heard of that. Damn, that's pretty cool. That seems where did you watch that at? Where do you read that at, Dre?
I go to the I go where I can get away from everybody else. I just go to the coffee shop where it's quiet, but it's called Conquering Worry and Anxiety.
Okay, worry and anxiety. All right, I'm gonna have to look at that one. I'm gonna have to
And
look at that.
yeah, the author is Daniel G. Amen. So,
Daniel G.
yep.
All right, cool. Because right now I'm reading a book called the Giant Awakening Within. I think it's a Tony Robbins book or something like that.
Like Tony
But
Robbins.
it was recommended to me because I watch Joe Rogan a lot. I'm pretty sure y'all know who Joe Rogan is.
Mhm.
And Tony Robbins was on there and he was speaking about this book, and I thought, why not? Let me take a look at it. So I'm reading this book right now, but and then he's talking about anxiety. He's talking about decision making, the importance of decision making, and how we need to learn from it. Like understanding how important the decision is, how it's going to affect your life. Um, Learning how to make more decisions. So like simple things in like people's life that we don't really look at. So this book is really interesting. I like it. So
It's
nah,
open.
thank you for recommending that to me,
Of
man.
course.
I
So the book
appreciate
you're
it.
reading is called The Giant Within.
The Giant Awakening Within. I think that's the title.
Right.
Yeah,
Who's the author?
yeah. It is Tony Robbins, I believe.
Thank you.
Yes, of course, yes. He's it's interesting. It's a long book, but I like it so far. But Trey, getting back to your question, man, I've been good. Um, I've been just trying to think of things coming up for the podcast. I've been training a lot. Switched up my training routine because I kind of hit a plateau. I started reading more, getting back on the reading, and then I just been teaching, man. Over here, like right now, it's like their SAT kind of like
Mhm.
month, so I've been busy teaching. But other than that, man, I've been good, just staying busy and trying to stay positive, brother.
I mean, putting that work in every day, you know what I'm saying? You definitely will get there.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah,
thinking about
man.
plateau is nice that you get to reach another level. So stay motivated, man.
Yeah, man. Likewise, man. Let's
Thank
let's
you.
let's let's introduce these guests. All right.
Sure.
So, all right, I'm going to introduce our first guest. She's been on this show. She was on episode 3, but I'm happy that she's coming back. She's a unique intellectual, and she is doing things for our community, and she's a great inspiration. So, Illy, how have you been?
I've been good, mostly working. My job is very demanding because of the institution I work for. But other than that, I'm good.
Welcome back.
Yeah, man, welcome back. Yeah, and then we got Vanita, man. Vanita's back. Listen, unique also has a unique style. An amazing artist, graphic designer, photography, you name it, she does it. Social media influencer as well. Appreciate you and welcome back. How's everything?
Everything is good. I'm glad to be back. And I've been real busy bookings,
It's phenomenal.
tired,
Yeah,
but
yeah. No, I
but I'm
understand. I
blessed. I
understand.
asked for that. So I'm blessed to be here. So
Yeah. And then our last guest, a university Maine Farmington alum. a teacher, an educator, and also an inspiring role model too. You know, she works with kids, and teaching is a tough job itself, and like being able to be this generation's teacher is an important role. So I'm happy to have her on the show. Her name is Rachel. Rachel, how's everything been?
Welcome, Rachel.
Yes, welcome. How's everything?
Oh, it's great. I'm actually working through a master's in trauma to kind of help the kiddos go through the past couple of years, and that's been really healing for me as well.
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so we're gonna start it off today. I want to start with the first topic. The hardships, facing hardships being a woman. Like, can you guys tell us about your experience? And tell us what you had to go through, like to get to the steps to where you are now. Because we, like us as men, we face things differently than women. Women have it a lot more difficult in the work field, in when it comes to experiences in general. But can you guys share some of your experiences if it's okay? Illy, can I start with you?
Um, I think there's the experience of me being a woman, more so being a Black woman, especially growing up in a predominantly white space where a lot of outside influence did everything to kind of make me not want to identify with my Blackness as much. Um, and then there was the period of coming out of there, which was kind of like an identity crisis from me being like the only Black girl in certain spaces, or being like the only Black girl around like this particular group of people, especially growing up in a very affluent town such as Greenwich. Um, and then going to Howard University and being in the middle of DC and sort of having my own personal journey and what it really means to be Black and what it is to be a Black woman, specifically in America. I think Howard did a lot in helping me identify who I am within that particular part of my identity. Um, and also giving me a lot of tools and a lot of names for a lot of the things that I've previously experienced, which helped me in my own personal healing from there. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. I'm used to being counted out or not being heard. And I'm used to not being taken as seriously sometimes, which I find even in my current workspace where my voice doesn't always seem to be heard or met with the same response as other people. But for me, I think a lot of it within that journey and identifying and learning who I am in particular, which is always evolving, um, a lot of it has been getting very comfortable with myself as a woman, the way I express myself, and within my Blackness, especially.
Yeah, so I'm happy. Thank you for sharing that. In what ways do you think it's evolving? You know, from
Um,
like, say when your mom and your grandma were growing up till now. Do In what ways do you see improvements?
well, I guess more for my mom and grandma specifically, it's not so much the message of what you can and can't do. My grandma and
Mm,
mom, as you guys know, are very independent and have always done what was in the best interest of family and community.
mm,
Um, like my grandmother at a time where it wasn't that frequent decided to divorce my grandfather because she was able to identify that she wasn't in love with him anymore. And that's more of a accepted idea now for people to take that route, but like 30, 40 years ago that wasn't really heard of or even spoken of. um,
right.
so I've had that message kind of spread where it's okay for me to let go and not do things the traditional way, or not to worry kind of what the norm is considered for women. um, for me, it was kind of having to learn my own journey and getting over those particular hurdles.
Right, right. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Benita, what you think? So can you tell us a little bit about some of the hardships you had to face? Being an artist too. Sometimes being an artist can be a little bit more of a struggle in that space because of
Yes.
who you are. So like, can you explain a little bit
Absolutely.
about your hardships?
Because even being a photographer, I still deal with those hardships. A lot of people recommend me, they see my work, and then when they find out I'm a female, it's like they're shocked. It's like they don't know that females could take good pictures too. And people don't know that one of the first photographers was actually a female. It wasn't even a male, it was a female. That was like one of the first photographers. But I deal with hardships being a photographer. Some people feel like because I'm a female, I don't know certain things, but sometimes
Mm,
I know more than a male might know. It's a dominated field, so I'm still trying to maneuver through that and kind of prove my place just because I'm a girl, which is difficult, but I don't see it really as a hardship. It's just kind of more of an opportunity for me to show myself and just prove that even if I'm a female, I could do it just as well as a guy, if not better. But
right.
You
You speak on it. Speak on this shit. Go ahead, Dre.
you hear a lot of people like mansplaining things to you that you already know. Like, like what does
yeah,
that shape look like? What's an example?
well, I had a guy tell me, "Well, do you have certain things?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you have an external flash you can shoot inside." Yes, I
Mhm.
do. I got backdrops. I have lighting. Like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you know the lingo, the terminology. It's not like
Yeah,
taking a camera and just like
and I'm very teachable, but don't treat me like I'm not capable of being taught
Mhm.
something. You know.
Yeah. Then it takes
So
away
it's
from
not. Yeah, it's not like I wouldn't say I face hardships, but definitely just being a woman is tough because people already kind of put you in this category because you're a woman and you already got to prove yourself more. But I'm used to having to do that. I shouldn't have to do that, but I'm used to it, so I think of it a little differently, and I don't mind trying to prove my.
It made it not feel like a safe place anymore.
Mm, Thank you for
sorry
sharing
to
that.
hear
Wow.
that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So wow, because it's unfortunate that some people have to deal with that, especially women. Um, because when you have to deal with that, it's like you know what you have to say, but sometimes I'm guessing you have to feel like you have to keep it to yourself because nobody's going to understand what you're going through in that moment. And I feel like a lot of women go through that. Like a lot of them when they feel a certain way or get maybe touched in a certain way, they can't really explain it because maybe the person they're trying to explain it to is not going to understand them. And like I feel bad about that because you should be able to tell the person like you're hurting. You should be able to tell the person what you're feeling and not feel ashamed about how you feel. And I feel like a lot of women have to go through that. And
Oh,
that's unfortunate.
yeah, I'm sorry. There's the fact that like women just exist, and then that's just a possibility when you walk out the door is just insane. Um, sorry you're going through that.
Oh, thank
Hopefully,
Word.
yeah, hopefully there's someone you can speak to about it. You find like the comfortable space where you can trust. I know that's hard a lot of time when you don't feel supported in different areas. Just as women.
Oh,
Wow. Yeah,
That's really
wow.
good.
Rachel, if he continues to harass you, I really encourage you to speak with an administrator that you trust, especially get a complaint on the record or even write the incidents down yourself,
Mhm.
especially
yeah,
being in that type of environment. I worked in education previously, and it's definitely one thing when you're teaching children about respect, but it's another when you have a full grown adult that receives sexual harassment trainings regularly. and still chooses to do what they want to do anyway.
Yeah, you deserve to feel safe, especially where you work. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry you're going
So
through that too.
Thank
yeah,
you.
no, for real, for real. And I wanted to ask y'all because now we're talking about it. Why is this such a problem for so many years that women have to suffer and suffer in a way they feel uncomfortable, whether it's sexual or mental or physical abuse? Like a lot. Why is that still the case in our generation? Why is it still such a big problem?
I know a lot of times women feel like they don't want to bother people or they don't want to cause trouble, they don't want to put things on a halt. So a lot of times they keep quiet. It's unfortunate because this is a big thing to speak up about. It can affect every area, like your mental, you don't want to
Mm,
do anything, your confidence, and all these factors are so important. So so yeah, I feel like they don't want to be a bother, they don't want to cause trouble or anything. But yeah, that's what I witnessed. Like people don't want to speak up
yeah,
because they
no.
don't cause trouble. They don't want the attention brought to them, and then they feel like they caused all this stuff. So
Yeah,
Um, I feel like simply it's just the term patriarchy
Mm,
as to a lot of it, but even in unpacking that is unpacking the ways that even patriarchal standards have put an influence to every last thing that we encounter on a day-to-day basis. It feels like the idea of entitlement to a woman's body and space, or that there's a certain privilege that you're supposed to be extended, um, just because women for centuries were deemed as less than, or depending on your culture. Um, but an overall standard was women were supposed to be subservient to men. And that, I think, just in the past 50 years, 60 years is something that people are slowly dismantling. And when you have centuries, just the way it works with racism, when there's centuries of a certain idea that's been penetrated throughout culture and everything else that is existing, it's hard to kind of undo all that damage that's already been done.
mhm.
But I think
yeah,
one of the most important things is, starting with children and teaching them about, boundaries, and raising them with the ideas that men and women are very equitable towards each other. There are a lot of things that men and women both can do that are similar, taking away all the biology crap that everybody likes to throw in the mix, because regardless, bodies are individual. The same strength that you may have as a man may not be comparable to another man, the same way it works for a woman and vice versa.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, but I think also a lot of it is accountability, your personal accountability to actually learn and figure out the damage that you may personally cause someone based off of those standards, just the way it is with anything. It's taking time to unpack that and sit with yourself and ask, why do you feel comfortable being able to randomly touch a woman that you don't know? Or why do you feel so entitled to have to be in someone's, very close space?
Mhm.
mm. But how do we teach the children, and what age do we start teaching them?
so I've taught almost every age until 8th grade, and in any age group, you ask before giving them a high five or any touch at all. You say, do you feel comfortable with sitting in this position today? Like if they don't want to sit crisscross applesauce, that might feel uncomfortable or vulnerable. Just really taking that time to ask them what makes them feel comfortable. That way that language is kept in their brain for others.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
I saw a
yeah.
post the other day about it's about like sex education. A mother was explaining to her daughter about sex education and like agency. Like those are important conversations to have, especially at a young age when like the questions start to get asked because, you know, kids are interpreting things based on like how you tell them and then how they're experiencing things, you know? So some kid may not know and they may grow up one way thinking something's okay when it's completely not. But like it's a huge thing, you know, teaching kids and like having conversations and being vulnerable to unpack those things. I feel like that's where I mean, I can't speak from generational aspect, but like in my own experience, where I feel like a lot of like the generation above us kind of lacked is the understanding and is the talking about agency and talking about like boundaries. I think it's huge now that like you guys are obviously making the strides and efforts to like do that because I think it's very important.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
controversial, like when kids should be taught, but I personally believe kids should be taught as early as they are able to understand body. And for a lot of kids, that is when they're in pre-K.
Yep.
Parents don't want kids to, talk about, well, I'll say US because it really is more of a US thing where kids are kind of taught to sexualize the body
Hmm.
earlier on than like more European countries or even in African countries. Um, but kids touch each other in daycare. They may not know that it's bad. They may not know what it is, but they're exploring, they're learning, and that's what kids do. They're touching. Um, and I think a lot of it is being able to give kids the language to identify when something's good, something's bad. Like for Greenwich, sex education starts like third grade.
Yeah.
And I think that might be state of Connecticut. Even learning just the uh-oh feeling compared to when I was
The
working
uh-oh
with kids,
feeling. Yeah, I remember
when I was
that.
working with kids in Southeast, and these are 10th graders who can't really tell me anything about sex education. They just know they do what they do and they don't get any reinforcement in what is okay, what's not okay.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember the uh-oh feeling. The thing is, I feel like even back then they weren't really teaching good ways on like how to know your body, how to react when something feels weird. Like I feel like they still left a lot of it out.
Yeah, I
So
think
like they let a lot of it out. And like I agree, yeah, you should teach it when you're in pre-K and all the way up until when you leave college. But like how do you teach somebody in pre-K with all of like the parenting that's going on, the parents that, oh, don't touch my baby like that. How are you supposed to like teach that in today's society?
Mhm.
Anybody
Even
can answer. Go ahead.
even just greeting, for me personally, when I taught pre-K, kids, of course, they want to come up and hug you and love on you. And I say, okay. And in my classroom, we'd always say, do you feel comfortable with a hug? Just that simple bit has really, at least from what I've seen, expanded their vocabulary, and their ability to express when they feel comfortable and not comfortable in pre-K.
Hmm.
Kids need reinforcement of not just the words, but the action, especially so young. And I think part of it is also, just it doesn't even have to be outright the uh-oh feeling when it comes to pre-K, because then they're still not really comprehending as much. It's like just identifying fingers, toes, like simple things on the body to be able to respond. And that is building not only their language, but it's also building them for deeper conversations later on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Benita, what do you think? Like, do you think we should be teaching it differently? Do you think what you learned in school was the right way, or what do you think?
I think people are scared sometimes to teach kids this just because they think it's a little bit taboo, a little touch and
Mhm.
go.
Yeah.
But I think if people are more open to teaching it rather than being so hesitant and scared, because even that hesitation can affect the kids too, where you don't teach them at all or you sugarcoat it and then they don't know where their boundaries are or what's right, what's wrong, what is the best way to go about it when it comes to interacting like that, touching. So I just think that I don't think there's a right or wrong way, but I think people just shouldn't be scared to teach kids because I think some people are just afraid.
Yeah, especially what's going on nowadays. It's difficult. Like when I was when I was a personal trainer and I was living in Florida for a little bit, I had to work with really, really young kids. And like they were doing exercises little they were doing them bad. They're little kids, they don't know what they're doing. So I'm like
Mm,
helping them, modifying them, and I'm asking like, yo, is it okay if I touch here? Like
yeah,
and it's like it's to the point where it's like it's very difficult to like be able to teach these kind of things because of the backlash you're gonna get from parents, the backlash you might get from the school. I think it's really difficult in these times.
yeah, I agree.
All right, so I wanna ask you guys another question, and like the question I want to ask is about the relationship roles that women play. I want to get into this topic because the stereotypes that we grew up knowing was like, okay, a man can be with so many girls and he's okay. But the women, if she goes with multiple men, she's looked at as a slut, she's looked at as a whore, she's looked at as a hoe. Why is this the case, and why has this seemed like to be the right way? Because even your parents, even your grandparents are known for this type of behavior where, oh, you need to find a good woman. It's not you need to find a it's you need to find a good woman who cooks, cleans, who takes care of the kids. Why has it been this way for generations and generations? And what do you think that type of feeling is now in our generation? Anybody can go first.
Well, I feel the initial push for women to be independent came out of need for the country. Like when it came to world wars and things, and most of the men were gone, there was more of the push for women to have to work. And then that opened the ideas up to independence for women. And then it just kind of started taking off from there. I My views of sexuality, relationships have evolved. Like I think with everyone, you go out in the world and these ideas and everything else should evolve. And I
Yeah.
think that we've evolved past the needs and the initial rationale as to why men and women are just kept in certain structures. Um, because we find men and women add value to different spaces. Like I enjoy being able to see like men on Instagram who are doing hair or are able to like be nail techs. It's a job. If you're good at it, do it. It shouldn't matter because you have a penis or a vagina as to why you're doing it. It just makes you happy. And I even think I think for relationships, it's not easy to just say it's 50-50 or the woman should do this or the man should do that. I think it takes away from us just seeing each other as humans and seeing that where you may be able to provide, I may it may not be my strong suit. Or you lost your job. I should be able to step in and be able to help where nothing is kind of off balance. Everything is balanced in the way we need it to be. And I think that's very individual across relationships or whatever the structure is you need to maintain whatever it is you have going on.
We're gonna
Definitely.
yo. I'm gonna yeah. But before we move on to that, because I want to get deep into this relationship.
Yeah.
My video is gonna end in a little bit. I'm gonna send you guys another quick link, but we're gonna continue to talk about relationship because um I want to talk about polygamous versus monogamous. I want to talk about all of this. All right, and before we get more into it, but I'm gonna send you guys another link right now to your emails. All right.
Okay.
All right. All right. So we're talking about relationships. Ilyasah gave us her point of view. Um, Benita, tell me a little bit about the relationship role that women play, and like why is it continue to be more beneficial for the man than the woman?
It seems like just from what I've experienced, men are looking for mothers and not girlfriends.
Speak on it. Speak on it. Speak on it. I like that you brought it up. This is not the first time I heard that before. Speak on it.
Yeah, because a lot of men, especially now, have been raised by single women. And so sometimes they want to look for somebody that mimics what they grew up on. They want a woman to do their laundry, cook. And you have some men who can do that too. And sometimes they just choose not to. But I'm learning that cooking is not a female trait, it's a basic life skill. So to expect somebody to do that for you, and even now, men even want women to provide, and they don't, do their part to do the same thing. I don't know. I've had an interesting experience. I've seen a different side of it rather than but to touch on what Illy said, she had mentioned 50-50, and I feel like relationship should be 100-100, you know?
Ooh, speak on
Like
that.
100-100. Because
Yeah.
like you have to have a spirit of being like selfless, and a lot of people claim they could be selfless, and then when you get into a relationship you have to think about somebody else. How you truly feel starts to come out, and it could be really good, it could be really bad. But I
Yeah, after them 6 months, you start to see who you start to see the real you start to see the real person, yo. I tell you. Nah,
yeah.
it's true. It's true. No, Rachel, what do you think? So can you give us if you want, share about your experiences and like why do you think the relationship is more beneficial for the man than the woman?
Well, first of all, I completely agree with these two beautiful, powerful ladies. Um, to kind of touch, I'm in Maine, and in Maine, it feels like we're stuck in the 1950s still sometimes.
Whew,
Uh,
yes.
Wow.
I grew up in a household where women didn't speak or have opinions, and they were there for um, cooking and cleaning and providing, pleasure and caretaking. And so I guess I had a lot of guilt growing up because I felt like I didn't have all the tools to be a good wife because I wasn't the best cook, or, maybe I was lazy. Sometimes I didn't feel like cleaning. So after this journey, I mean, right now I'm very blessed. I'm in a really healthy, wonderful relationship where we just talk about what our strengths are, and then we kind of take on those roles versus there being certain roles for each person.
Mm, mm, yeah. Trey, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I think what a good pattern I'm seeing here in like everyone's response as far as like it's just about being a united front, you know? I think it's ridiculous to kind of box people based on just their gender, especially now, you know? I mean, I grew up with most of you guys here, except for Rachel. And a lot of our moms are really strong women who provide and do a lot, you know, of independent work.
Crazy, crazy woman, but
Insane.
strong.
You guys, very crazy, but it's very, very strong. So, like that whole, taking care of like, we need to mention it too, like women being providers and like some people just like kind of getting like men getting by on that. I've seen that pattern happen a lot just in general in my life and like people around me. And that always perplexed me because like the women in my family are very like strong and like, you know, they are like the sole providers of a lot of things. So they won't let that happen typically. But like, I think it comes down to like when people talk about successful relationships, it's about being united front. They're again talking about their strengths, what they can do. And I think it's coming in the middle and like not necessarily 50-50, but like, 100-100 and strength and weaknesses, I feel like that's where we should be at now. If your mind's anywhere like past that, you have a lot of unpacking to do. And I think that's also I think a good suggestion as well. Um, when I went to therapy, I realized a lot of the things that like I expected were triggers and behaviors of what I was accustomed to. So, and going to therapy, I was able to pretty much take away a lot of responsibility I was putting on my partner. Um, and a lot of things had nothing to do with her at all. So I feel like a lot of people they don't take opportunity to actually like figure out why they think the way they think or do the things they do. I feel like when people get help, they can really like it can change. It can be life changing for you, for your relationships, for your partners, and then for your individual self.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna go back to what Benita said about the whole "I'm not your mother" because I feel like our generation we have developed a lot of soft men, and I hate to say this because I am one, but like I don't like that a lot of us rely on women like as a mother, like, oh, they have to do this, they have to do that. And it takes away from the relationship itself. Because when you're in a relationship or you have a relationship with somebody, and this is what I have learned. I've learned that it's not all about you, even if you're in a bad, even if you're having a bad day, maybe this person needs you more than you need yourself in that moment, and you
Mhm.
have to sacrifice it, you have to
Mhm.
sacrifice it. And like, I didn't know that before. I didn't know that, okay, this person is bad and I'm bad, like, no, look at me first. No, it's sometimes you have to sacrifice, that you have to sacrifice your attention to them. And when you need space, it's like respect that person's space, because maybe they want to grow in an area and maybe you need time for yourself to grow and you guys come together after. I think
Mhm.
it's important to make sure that person is still growing with you, because if they're
Yeah,
not, it's really not a point for you to be with them, if you get what I'm saying. So
Yeah,
that's what I have learned, like with friendships, relationships, but like I don't say relationships, I say friendships. With friendships, I learned that in order for you to be there for them, you have to watch them grow and you have to respect them as a person. And I don't think a lot of people do that. A lot of people go into relationships with their problems thinking that that person is going to help them. And that is never the case. That is never the case. Relationship is not, if you're looking for happiness, a relationship is not that. A relationship is a totally different thing than looking for happiness. And people need to understand that. That's
So
my opinion on it.
I think your opinion definitely emphasizes the importance of support systems. And I think it's what it is at the end of the day. You be there for somebody, navigating your life, pretty much kind of conjoining those two in certain levels. And doing what works for you both.
I think you
Yeah.
all kind of touched on just the concept of expectations that you have. Um, just even going into like the initial process of dating someone, if you know that you're looking for someone to play mom, to take care of you, to do all those things, then you need to actually find someone who's in agreement with that.
Mhm.
yeah.
I
Because a
don't
lot
like,
of people compromise.
yeah, or
So, not to cut
manipulate.
you off, but a lot of people compromise just because
Mhm.
they want to make the person happy, and then after they get there, they spend some time there, and they're doing all this stuff, and they realize they're not getting anything in return.
And
The
you
truth
lose
Exactly.
like a
really start to come
part,
out.
oh, sorry. You lose like a part of yourself once you make that compromise.
Mm-hmm.
You're like losing a part of your essence, who you are, because that's not part of what you expect or want from this relationship. And sometimes expectations are so unrealistic. Like we wouldn't even expect those things from ourselves. So how could we possibly expect it from a partner?
Yeah, and
Relationships are
expectations
so
lead to
tough.
disappointment. So I agree
Yeah.
with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important for men and women to be able to identify your expectations of someone else. You should be able to provide for yourself.
Absolutely.
You're not able to give and do certain things to another partner for a partner, but those are the things you want for yourself. I feel like it's really important to be able to sit with yourself, have some level of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and be able to say, if I want these things from my partner, I need to work on attaining and having them for myself first.
Yeah, provide what you require.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh,
That's accountability
ooh,
right there.
that Illy, I 100% agree with you on that. 100%. Like yes, I appreciate that. Guys, I'm gonna interrupt you real quick, but this is Isabella, by the way.
Hi. I'm
Isabella, this is
always late.
Rachel. Illy, I'm pretty sure you know Illy, and then there's my cousin
Hi,
Vinny, the
Isabella.
artist.
Hi.
Yes,
Yeah, we all went to high
yes,
school
yes.
forever
Um,
ago. Makes me feel
so
old about
let
that.
me ask you guys this. When it comes to orgasms, right? A lot of men in particular are not doing their job.
No, yeah.
And this is a big problem. It's a big problem. 80% of women do not orgasm during sex. Men, yes, I will say it again. 80% of women do not orgasm during sex.
I
What
thought
is
it
the
was
problem?
higher. I thought it was higher.
It might
Higher.
be higher. It might be
I wouldn't
higher.
be
Well, it
surprised.
depends on the type of orgasm, right? So you're talking most
Yeah,
women,
but not
like
the
the
one we
80% is
want.
penetrative. A
Yes,
lot of
not the one we
women
want.
orgasm from like more clitoral stimulation
Mhm.
than actual
Yes,
penetration.
Mhm.
And even
yes.
then, I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is knowing about the body, learning about the body, being able to actually learn and understand what parts do and being able to have those breakdowns in health class or even personal discussions at home. And it also goes with the whole patriarchy, conversation about the entitlement that a lot of men kind of have going into sex is still the I'm here to use you for pleasure and not necessarily to also give you that same pleasure in return.
Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask y'all this. Why 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 is it such a problem for men to find the clitoris? Why has it been a big issue for us? And like what are we missing during the pleasure?
I
I have
think
I
some
think.
opinion.
women, oh,
Oh,
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh no, you go. You go.
Oh, okay. I think women know where it is. So if you let them guide you, most of the time that will help you. Just being open to letting a woman show you what she needs.
Yeah, and men are
Yeah.
kind of selfish. They don't think about pleasing their partner. They're just thinking about getting off what they need to get off, and then is whatever after that. But
And I think this kind of goes back to what we were saying before. Men put themselves first. And I think they do know where the clitoris is. And I think they do know how they could please us if they really wanted to. But they're putting their pleasure before ours. And unfortunately, we kind of keep this system going by faking an orgasm. A lot of girls and women are faking orgasms. And that's feeding into the
Ooh,
system
that hurts.
once
That
again. But
hurts.
it's true,
That
and
hurts.
once again
Yeah.
we're putting ourselves second place and pleasing the man first. When we fake those orgasms, we're telling him you did an amazing job, that was great, when it wasn't. He
Mm-mm,
doesn't deserve that
mm-mm.
pleasure. Why are we faking orgasms?
Why are
That
you lying? Why are you lying? Why are you lying just to make us feel
praise
better?
her.
Don't
Sometimes
lie.
I feel like that has to do with like how comfortable you truly are. Like
Yep.
one thing I think is also what Rachel said, being open-minded, not being concerned if something seems gay or this
Yeah,
or that. If
yeah,
you like it, you like it.
yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, that's what your body is responding to. It's responding.
Yep,
Consensually, of course, with
of
consent.
course, yeah.
Consent.
Or,
But
or
Expectation.
I also feel like, sometimes you just take a second and you're just consider if you're actually comfortable with your partner or not. I feel like when you're comfortable with your partner, it's easier to be like, I don't really like that, or let's do this, or whatever the case is. Sometimes you don't want to hurt someone's ego, but I also feel like that has to do with how comfortable you are with being able to openly express yourself with your partner. If you can't tell your partner what's wrong, or you can't tell your partner what you don't like, you're going to start growing resentment in different areas when you're not getting what you need, but you're also not communicating what it is you need.
And that's when the DMs happen. DMs, that's y'all know what I'm talking about. Don't play
That's a
stupid.
risky place.
I think too,
But
like intimacy, like for me personally, I need to feel intimate and cared about to achieve an orgasm.
yeah, yeah, go ahead, Dre. Go ahead.
I was gonna say too, you guys kind of touched on it, like with pride. You know, I feel like sex is more enjoyable when the conversation goes both ways and we know what pleasure each other. You know,
Right.
so like, listening has been like monumental to my sex life as far as that's concerned. Like, you know, like hearing like what my fiance likes and like pretty much understanding like what makes her body like go off. You know, I feel like that time, I feel like based on the time too, like that wasn't always considered. You know, like why do you feel like girls had to lie, you know, not to be open? Like, you know, in those settings, I get maybe one night stands, you know, where like you really don't know the person that well, and like you both at that point are obviously trying to just get it off. But like, why do you feel like, you know, I know I can only speak as a man, you know, because I'm not a woman. I don't know what you guys go through, so I'm asking the question mostly why sometimes girls aren't transparent about what they like right off the rip. Like, where do you feel like that comes from? 'Cause I know for guys, some guys just probably won't ask because their pride, you know, they don't want to hear that like themselves are not satisfying a woman just for being in them, and that 100% is a pride thing. But I feel like when you kill that, it makes the experience more pleasurable for your partner and for you.
I know in the past, right now I'm very blessed in my relationship, but in the past, I felt like I had to coddle my partner, like they weren't emotionally available, they hadn't done their work, and they would crumble at the first like sense of failure.
Got you. Wow. Damn, that's a lot. Now you said so little, but like that's a lot. That's
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
And
Anybody else? What do y'all feel? Go ahead, Ellie.
sometimes it's being comfortable with yourself. You know, just like men haven't learned, women also, especially if you like grew up in similar areas where it's taboo to talk about sex. Sometimes you just don't know until you're in the moment, and then it's awkward. Like you're in your head, it becomes awkward. You don't know how to say, I don't really like that, because it's your first time really figuring it out. And you're still trying to be comfortable with your body. And sometimes it's difficult as a woman to even identify what you're actually comfortable with sexually, or thinking like, am I just doing this to please my partner, or am I actually enjoying it?
Yeah, it comes down to confidence too. You have to be very confident, because it does translate when you get to that point you have sex. If you're not confident in yourself, you're gonna, like Illy said, you're gonna question everything, and it's gonna ruin everything.
Yeah, I read a book. It was last year, probably 2021, 2 years ago. I read a book called "She Comes First," and wow, when I picked up this book, I was like, wow, no, I don't really do that. No, I don't really do that. But like, it all starts with the brain. And men, I'm talking to us right now. It starts with the brain. In order for you to have in order for your partner to have an orgasm, it starts with the brain. Make sure the setting is right, comfortability, learning what that person wants, being vulnerable, be open, be vulnerable, to what she's telling you, because it's gonna make it better for the relationship. It's gonna make it better sexually. So if she tells you, "Oh, I don't think you're doing this right. I like it like this," or "You should do that more because this is what stimulates me," then be okay to listen. And I learned that from reading this book, and from what I've experienced, uh, I prefer the woman to have pleasure. When I prefer both. If I'm just getting it, then I won't. I will prefer that woman not to talk to me anymore. So for me, it's important to us to be on the same equal playing field.
Mhm.
After I read that book, I was like, okay, from now on, I make sure that we're on the same playing field, or we just move on from each other. I don't want to be the only one having pleasure.
I
I
think
have a book. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Andre.
I'll say also, I think it's too that I think it's not surprising, but like women do enjoy sex as much as men do. And like I've learned that too, especially when it's enjoyable. I think that in our mindset, we get over the fact that like guys are just sexual because like, we're men, not testosterone. I think when you understand that you can put your pride aside and that like I'm thinking to the men right now that like literally if you listen to your partner, it could be a really enjoyable experience, like way, way, way more enjoyable than you thought it could ever be if you guys share on the same page with your partner and you listen to them.
Yes,
Like
yes.
one time I put my ego aside was when like not to get too into detail, but like I remember there's a certain motion where one of my partners in the past was already moving like instead of up and down, like straight in penetration. Ilyasah touched on it earlier
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
but type of orgasm. Instead of going like in and out, she's moving forward and back, and I was like confused because that was hurting me. I'm like, yo, like what are you doing? But she was trying to stimulate her clitoris. So from that standpoint, it's like I learned something completely new in that moment, and because I was open to it, it was more pleasurable for both of us, and that made it even more intimate and more rewarding. So I feel like once you're able to kill your pride and your ego, it would be so much better.
Yeah, and don't watch porn, guys. Do
That's not real
not.
life. That is
Porn
not
is
real life.
not real love. And listen, coming from somebody that thought it was,
Not real
don't
life.
watch it. It's not. It's not you. Like
If you
I
watch it,
prefer you guys to sit down and have a conversation. Porn is not it. They're getting
Or
paid. They put that lube on. They're not really enjoying it. So listen, do not watch porn.
you
or
don't see
if
the
you are
content.
watching porn, be able to separate it for yourself that these
Reality.
are
Yep.
actors putting on a fantasy and an experience for you to enjoy. It does not translate to people who are amateurs, exactly why they
Exactly.
have these different categories and all that.
Mhm.
But I was going to say, I have a book recommendation called The Ethical Slut.
The ethical
And it
slut.
actually,
Oh, hold up. Let me
I got
write
it.
this
Now,
down. I'm blurry. I'm blurry. Oh, there it is. Wait. Yeah, okay, the ethical slut. Okay.
All right. And in The Ethical Slut, I know the title is shocking for some people, but it actually talks about the different forms of relationships. So monogamy, polyamory, and it goes into different sexuality expressions, even asexual. And it really is like more like a guide and informational, and it translates really easily for anyone to be able to read. Um, and it definitely makes it easier for you to kind of figure out, like, in all these different identities and labels, kind of where you might be able to insert yourself or identify, or even identify that maybe all these conventional things don't fit you. um it really talks about all the isms and everything and how they kind of intersect with each other. And I just think it's a really good book for anyone to read, especially if you're starting to dive or trying to understand more about different relationship structures outside of monogamy.
Yes, ethical slut. All right, I'll look at that one too. Yeah. Bella, what do you think? What is your opinion on it
On
about
orgasms,
yes, on orgasms?
I think were we talking about this a few days ago and like the
Yes,
fake
we were.
laughing?
Yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah,
fake. Yeah.
this sounds silly, but I used to like, I don't know why I did this. I used to catch myself doing this all the time, fake laughing at things that men would say that I did not think was funny at all. And it was almost like a bodily, like
response.
an
It's humiliating
instinctual
to
thing.
hear.
Like I don't think I was even aware I was like giggling or laughing. And I started to just like tell myself, like, okay, I'm just not gonna laugh. I'm not gonna say anything, but I'm gonna start with, I'm just not gonna laugh. And some men would like stare at me with like a piercing look, like, why? I think it angered them, like, you're not laughing. Like what I said is supposed to be funny, like you're supposed to be laughing. And I remember like I correlated that with like faking an orgasm. It all goes back to once again pleasing the man. It's an act that we as women are taking on to please a man. And I think that, there's so many things that have been systemically ingrained in our society, and there's inequalities between the genders. Like there just are. It's been ingrained, it's systemic, and it just exists. And I think it's so hard for us to break things down and remove all of this that has been so ingrained. So I think there's just little by little, there's things that we can do to kind of take that power back and be equal. And I think one of them is not faking something. If we have to stay true to ourselves. If we don't think it's funny, we don't have to laugh. That's simply it. And if they question why we're not laughing, then we can just kindly explain, I don't think that was funny at all. There was nothing humorous about what you said. It doesn't fit my sense of humor. Moving on now. I'm not going to sit on that. I'm not going to argue with you about it. And there's so many things going on, like Andrew Tate right now, and people defending his actions. And I lost a friend like last week because he was insisting that he didn't do anything wrong. And yeah, it got to the point where I was arguing with him, and my husband was like, who's obviously agrees with me, my husband was like, stop arguing with him. Like people like that already have a belief system, like the same way I have a belief system. Like no one's going to change my belief system. I can't change theirs. And sometimes we lose so much energy arguing with people when we need to just stay true to ourselves, and that's enough. So that's what I'm kind of practicing here. That's my new thing, is just being true to myself. I'm not going to let other people's belief and energy and mindset contaminate mine. Okay, that's you. I'm over here. And just like you were saying, like growing with people, if this friendship, if this conversation is not helping me grow, we just need to take a step back. We don't have to end our friendship, but for now, I need some time away from you to just rethink why we're friends, if this friendship is working for me. Relationship, because friendship, it is a relationship. So there's just so much. And I like how you showed that book before, because everything is so intersected. Just everything in our lives, our friendships are intersected into our sex life too, because we hear our friends talk about their sex life. And sometimes we end up thinking that our friend's relationship is realistic, and we compare it to our relationship. And then there's social media, and people post what they're happy about, not the reality. So there's
boy.
so much, and it's all correlated, it's all related, and it really affects the way we think, the way we behave, the way we act in our life. And it's hard to know what's real, what's not real. And we're kind of just figuring things out. Sex is a process, right? We don't have sex one time and we're experts on it.
Yeah, that's the problem.
I think, I don't know.
You unpack
Still learning.
You impact so many different elements in what you just said just now. I have a question for you. When did that shift in your mindset kind of happen? From like the fake laughing, like because we went to the same high school, and we had different experience of like character change and development later on. So when did that switch start happening for you? Like what age?
I think it was when people were joking about my menstruation. Like that was when I was like, okay, hold on. Like I can't control this. This is a natural biological response that my body's happening. Why are we joking about my menstruation cycle? What's humorous about that? I think I had like to go to the bathroom once on a field trip, and a boy was like, are you on your period or something? And like in front of everyone on the bus. And I remember just not laughing. And a lot of other girls, I remember, laughed, and I felt so betrayed by my people. Like the girls, I was like, why? What? I thought they would be the ones that would defend me and be like, hey, that's not funny. So I remember like after that day, I think that was in 8th grade, I was like, I'm just not going to laugh at guys anymore. I'm not going to laugh at things that I don't think is funny. And I'll do it for other girls too. If I see other guys making fun of other girls, I'm not going to laugh. I'm not going to be like the same as them and just laugh. And that goes with a lot of other things. There's a lot of other jokes that people shouldn't be making, and people just laugh about it, when that's such a critical moment where we can make a statement and have a voice and say, those jokes, that's not funny. So I think that translates to a lot of other realms. People tend to just laugh at things as a response to just kind of fill a space. I think we use laughter a lot, and I like there's a lot of freedom in laughter, like when it's real. I really think like when you're like that throat laughter where you're just like feeling so happy, like that, there's so much freedom there. And when we like fake laugh, we're like destroying a part of ourselves. I really think that. I don't know if we agree, but like it goes back to the orgasm thing, like faking something that should be authentic.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Go ahead, Dre, you got something?
Here's my
Okay.
question.
Yeah. So I want to ask you guys this, and this is the last question I'm going to ask, and then we're going to do. I got two more topics for us, and that's it. But I'm going to ask this last question. So in the generation we're all millennials in here. Why are we starting to see? Which I'm happy, by the way, because enough is enough. But why are we starting to see women take this role and be like, I can have this, I can have this main person, I can have a side, I can have this side. Why are we starting to see that? I like it because now it's starting because first of all, men fucked up. That's one thing. Second of all, they're tired of our bullshit, and I understand it now. I understand why they've taken this role, but why? What do you guys think it is? And like, do you think it is a good thing that you're starting to see women do this?
Men had a role like that for a while.
I know, I know. Listen, now it's starting to
No one
change.
questioned why he did that.
Listen to
No,
Coyle.
nobody questioned it. But
Which one
why
of
is it? Why are we starting to see a difference?
Think,
I think it's all about.
oh no, go ahead, Rachel.
No, you go, please.
On the book that I talked about, The Ethical Slut, it actually touches on ethical monogamy or non-monogamy, which I think is really extremely important, whether you're a man, woman, non-binary. And a lot of that has to do with honesty and communication. I think it's people are realizing that there's no one way to live. There's no one family structure, relationship structure that is going to fit everybody in this world and all their cultures and identities and everything else. So I think when you're doing it in an ethical sense, practicing non-monogamy, it's fine. It's when you start getting into the blurred lines of keeping things from your partner or, you know, crossing other people's boundaries. One of my really close friends, she is polyamorous, and she's the one that presented it to her partner. She's bisexual, he's heterosexual. And she wants a girlfriend or another boyfriend, but she's dating and she just wants to figure out what works for her. But both of them are very intentional about the communication and being honest with themselves about their feelings, about what's happening with other people. She can be very vocal and very honest about feeling jealous at times of when he has company or anything else, even though she's doing the same thing. And I think a lot of that is a certain level of emotional intelligence you need to have and a very high level of self-awareness when you enter into relationships with more than one person. You know, the initial relationship is its own set of challenges that you have to navigate. And I think there's this particular space you need to be in as an individual to be able to handle opening that with another person, and then also knowing that your primary partner is also doing the same.
Okay, we got a couple minutes in this video. Go ahead, Rachel.
Well, you hit a lot of the points I was thinking, but personally, I'm on a therapeutic journey. I'm learning more about my wants, my needs. And I think, you know, us as a generation, therapy has been more accessible and also less, I don't want to say shameful, but I would say that a couple of generations before us, it was considered shameful. And so now that I feel a lot of people are taking part in therapy and working on themselves and being better to stop this generational trauma, you know, now people are opening up more to what actually makes sense for me. Why did I have this behavior in the past? how is this true to myself, and really taking that stance of what makes sense for me, as long as it's consensual between anybody involved. I think whatever works for anybody.
Vanita, what do you think?
I think that women having these choices now and having mains and sides, it's not so much about having mains and sides. I think they just want to be happy too. I think they just want to do I don't think it's a problem to have options, especially if you're single, because you get out there, you figure out what you want, and sometimes you could be in a relationship and that may not be what you want after a while. And don't block your blessings. You know what I mean?
Hey, live my life like it's golden. Bella, what do you think?
Yeah, I think kind of like goes back to before, like men aren't being questioned for certain actions and behaviors, and neither should women or just anyone else, right? I think it goes back to just staying true to yourself. We have things that we're expecting from a relationship, and if we find a partner that can match that, we're happy in the relationship, then it is what it is, right? We shouldn't be questioning other people's relationships. I've seen a lot of people like do that, or even like make comments like on my relationship when I was long distance. I had so many people making comments like, oh, he's definitely cheating on you, or like, oh, like long distance, like there's no way that's gonna work. And now we're married and living together. Like it just worked out. And can you imagine if I like fed into everything, every little comment? I just stayed true to myself, I kind of was like, all right, well, hopefully not. If that's what you think, I'm trusting my partner, not what someone else is thinking. And I think that's what it comes down to, is if you can share sex, you can share your feelings, right? If you're having an intimacy like sex, you can talk about your feelings with your partner. I know Dre mentioned like one night stands. That's a little different, obviously, but if you're with a partner that you're sharing sex with, you can talk about your feelings, what you expect, what you want from the relationship, and find common ground, find compromise, find understanding there. And like I said, I think it's a lifelong journey. Like I'm married and my husband and I are still learning things about each other. Like last week I learned something new about him and I was like, whoa, I never knew that about you. And I thought I knew everything, and we're learning, we grow together. There's downfalls, and we help each other out of them. Nothing's perfect. That's what I think.
All right, so go ahead, Dre. You got something to say?
I just want to say I actually have to get out of here. I want to say thank you, ladies, for all sharing your experiences, your insights, and your thoughts, because it's life-changing, and I learned a lot just from this call today. So thank you guys for your time. Have a great week, and keep being great. Every last one.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to us and being open.
You're right.
Yes, Dre.
A lot of men were like that. Things would be different.
Thank you.
We're trying, man. We're trying. And Dre, thank you, man. Have a great week, brother. Going to this week, making last week better, bro. So take care, man.
You as well.
Yes. So guys, we have 2 more topics I want to get in touch with. So I'm gonna send you another link. The last 2 topics are gonna be equality in the workplace and social rights. All right, with who's your inspiration, who's your role model, and then we'll end it like that. All right. So I'll send you guys the link right now.
Oh, we're going on a new link?
Yes, we're going on a new one. Yes.
A new Zoom?
Yes, I'm gonna email it right now. Yes.
So X out of this one?
Yes, X out. That's understandable too. All right, so let's jump into it. We're gonna talk about equality. All right. Equality has that word, man. With equality and racism and rights for women. You would think after years and years and years that we would come together and there would be equality. But that is a thing that is like far reaching. So guys, I want to know your opinions about equality in the workplace and equality in general. Why is this thing continuing to be a big problem, and why do we seem like we're not going anywhere?
I think, I mean, I've experienced sexual harassment in the workplace. We've already talked about that, but I think I've actually come forward several times to admin, to other teachers, coworkers, and it's basically shut down every time. I think that is a huge piece of why it's still happening, is we're silenced.
Yeah, yeah, and with teachers too, the teacher salary is horrible. And it's unfortunate because teachers are the leaders going into the next generation, and I feel like that should be a salary that should be what the job puts out. That's how much you should actually make, and I think it's
Mhm.
unfortunate that we teach and like those benefits don't come into play. So that's unfortunate. Illy, what do you think? What do you think about the equality and like women getting paid equally as men? Why do you think that's still a problem?
Um, Easily because the people who still were raised in that era haven't died, to be completely honest.
I'm
Um,
waiting, Illy. I'm waiting.
when you when you look at just how Congress looks in and of itself, it's pretty much a clear-cut picture as to just how a lot of things really play out. I work for the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace and and I'm the program coordinator for the American Statecraft Program. So a lot of my focus is on foreign policy, domestic U.S. foreign policy. But we have centers that are around the world and literally programs that touch on everything. And I've been very blessed in my experience the past couple years to hear from a lot of scholars, especially scholars that, grew up in Iran or in other Middle Eastern countries, Eastern European countries. And a lot of it is these very old, outdated ideas that people cling to because that's what worked for them, not realizing that, the same environment that they once were in is no longer here. And there is a need, for us, not just us in the United States have the need, but even just on an evolutionary scale to keep going forward as humans and not being bound to the same structures that we once were. And unfortunately, a lot of the people who are making law within the country and have final say are still very much from the boomers. And even that has translated and trickled down to, Generation X. And it's very hard to get rid of, belief systems and ideas that were held on to for such long periods of time. And I honestly don't think that law-wise there is going to be as much of a push to get things where they really need to be, until a lot of them are gone, to be honest.
And how cold that
Agreed.
does sound, yeah, they gotta die. And I hate to say that. Listen, uh, because a lot of our family is in that generation. Venita, we got a lot of older family, and it sucks to say that, but like, man, their generation,
Yeah,
man,
a lot of
they've
them are
done some
stuck.
damage.
Yeah, they're stuck in their ways, and a lot of
Mhm.
them don't want to change. They don't want to be told that they're wrong. They don't want to take accountability. It almost
What?
makes them sick. It almost makes them
But it's
sick.
true.
No, it
Let's
is.
get it all out.
A lot of them, our grandmothers, for instance, they couldn't even get a credit card until they were what, in their late 20s, early 30s at that point. So, a lot of this really is new. And I think it's very interesting when people get upset over these ideas and, oh my God, abortion and everything else. Because it really is still new. People may be tired of hearing about it, but it is very new in the evolution, just where we've gone as a current civilization, and even, since the first Homo sapien, formed. there's constantly progress that needs to be made, but a lot of these ideas don't really end until there's no more people to kind of perpetuate them.
Right.
Right. Right. And do you think we're going to be the generation to do that?
No.
You don't think so? Why not?
Even Twitter wars that you currently see, especially when it comes to like Black men and Black women, when it comes to
it's such a battle now with Black men and Black women. I don't know how that happens. It's such a battle now.
It don't make sense. It don't make sense.
But I do think it makes sense. Even in this discussion, it really makes sense because a lot of them are holding on to structures and things that reinforce their power as Black men,
like people don't want to be teachable. So
it's already that, you're counted against because you're Black, but to then be counted against as a man, that's something else that they may not want to confront. And a lot of that also is realizing we are not our parents or our grandparents. We are not in the civil rights era. We are not confounded to the same thing. So to have these expectations that us as people aren't supposed to evolve along with the rest of society, and we're supposed to keep certain structures, even though other people aren't following those same structures themselves traditionally. It doesn't do anything but keep us stuck in the same exact place. I don't remember who exactly said it, but those who are afraid to confront history are doomed to repeat it.
That's a bar right there.
Exactly.
Bella, what do you think?
I think Illy hit it perfectly with what she just said, that history is going to repeat itself. If you look back, like in the 18th century, women had like literally their own spheres. It was called women's spheres. And it was basically like, think about like a circle, like women were supposed to stay in that circle. And if they got out of the circle, they were considered like it was unsafe. Some of them did. They were allowed to. Some of them traveled to like other villas, but they were told like you are now no longer safe once you're exiting that circle. If you stay in your sphere, which what do you think it was? Like doing chores at home, taking care of the kids, just having a household like role, making clothes out of yarn. You were safe in your sphere. Whereas the men, their sphere was completely different and wasn't enclosed, right? They were free to roam and do whatever they wanted. And there was no kind of concern for safety for them because they were men. And then also, we're not really represented historically. We're not really represented in school. So I think like you asked, like, oh, is this going to change soon? I think our generation is definitely paving the way for change. I don't think we can like, just say, hey, we're doing a lot. We're paving the way, but I don't think things are going to just drastically change. And history repeating itself. Look, Roe versus Wade just happened. What does that mean for us? That was a part of our amendment. So is our right to vote. That's concerning, like extremely concerning. What's next? So I think that sometimes I think a lot of us aren't outraged enough. I really think that we're not as outraged as we should be about this. And I think that there should be more outrage. I think that's just the word for it. We should be outraged that even happened. That's our bodily autonomy. And like you said, it's all these old white men that we're waiting for them to die because they're the ones that are making these choices for us. Who are they to have any power control over our body?
And it seems like they're
so much
they're making it seem like it's dangerous to be a woman right now. It's unfortunate that
well, they're making it dangerous for us to be a woman. Yeah. That's dangerous. If you can have access to birth control when you need it, to an abortion, that's dangerous. That is dangerous.
There's a Native American woman in the Midwest who was just convicted of murder because she had a miscarriage. Something her body, she can't
biological response.
Yeah, she just convicted this past week. Like you can't control a miscarriage. So
crazy.
It's
Yeah, that's
taking on the
wild.
trauma of not only the process that a woman has to go through physically and mentally involving a miscarriage, but then to be
Something that wasn't in her
convicted of
control.
murdering that child because of what your
Mhm.
body is doing, and you have no control over that. Like, it is very Handmaid's Tale. Florida is probably the biggest example of the
Yeah.
Handmaid's Tale that's currently happening, and like I really do fear for women that live in the Midwest and more, deep South, because it is scary to know that your whole entire life, freedom and everything else can be taken away by things you literally have no control over in your body, and especially by men who will never, ever feel that pain,
Yeah.
No.
who will never have to take on that additional trauma to themselves because of it. And not saying, the trauma from male partners when their partners are going through it, but for men who are in these positions, it's very out of touch. And I, even in my current job where it's a think tank, so a lot of it is academic research based. But I even had that conversation with my boss and one of our like very well-known
Is she a
scholars.
woman or a man? Just curious.
Men. They're both men. Yeah. Having the conversation with both of them about, when writing and policy is out of touch, it can't possibly help or reflect the people that it's meant to be helping and serving. Especially when the people who are creating that policy themselves are out of touch with what their constituents actually need and want. A lot of it is as if they're trying to like get their childhoods back, like a childhood, some Pleasantville picture perfect childhood that they were sold as kids that they were supposed to have and they weren't able to get, and them being in positions of power is kind of how they're unraveling that, is getting it to a place that makes them feel comfortable because they can't handle change.
Wow, I never thought of it that way.
Wow.
That's a different way to think of it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Let me ask y'all this, because around the world we have a lot of violence going on, but most importantly, we have violence towards women. Why does this continue to be a thing? Violence towards women. Why is it still a topic that a lot of people don't discuss, especially the media? The media is more focused on racism, who's getting married, Kanye West, but they're not focused on women's violence. Can you guys tell me your opinions on how y'all feel about women's violence, and why is it not really talked about?
I think there's a lot that is censored and kind of swept under the rug because I don't think that, like I said before, people will be outraged. I don't think that they want that outrage, right? I think that when there's a lot of outrage, there's usually a strong response. And I think they're trying to hold and push back on that strong response. So I think that a lot of that is kept away from the news and isn't really being exposed the way it should be because it's controversial and it'll create a large response. And I think that our government fears that. I don't know. What does everyone else think?
I don't think. Go ahead.
I think that, again, what Illy said before goes back to who is stuck in their ways. They run the media.
Yeah.
They control it. They don't want to expose certain things that will cause a reaction, get an uproar. They're trying to keep stuff as low as possible. I don't know why they do that, but
because of that, I guess. Exactly what a response, right? If people
it seems like they're scared of confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by now everybody should be prepared for confrontation. At least be prepared to defend yourself, your opinion, and not just sweep somebody else's opinion under the rug just because you don't agree with it,
Violence against women, it's a very difficult thing to dismantle, especially when you're talking about, just specific countries. There's cultural and religious things to kind of take into account. And, I think, well, one thing the US is definitely known for is trumping on other countries' sovereignty. even though, you know, being mindful of these are my personal views and not my jobs. But yeah, even though these are definitely discussions I have in the workplace, because these are all academics, so everybody's in like very free thinking spaces. But yeah, a lot of that really does have to do with this. I think it's a fear of a different power structure.
Right.
It's fear of what's different, what's not known. I think the fear of the unknown is probably like one of the most dangerous motivational, like intrinsic just happenings for humans, because it really does feed into a lot of what we do and why we're doing it.
Right.
Not necessarily because, you know, there's an issue with what's presented, but because you don't know the possibilities of this one thing and what it can open up later on, you don't want to do it.
Right.
Which, you know, definitely has to do with the same people being able to maintain their power. Once there's more people who are on the side of one idea of how our society should happen, once people start actually having to listen and respect and take women's ideas and viewpoints into consideration,
Yeah.
there's a different balance that starts happening around the world that I don't think a lot of men from previous generations are comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that kind of feeds into each other on a more global scale.
Billy, you just
Yeah.
brought my mindset somewhere else too. I think there's also a lot of violence against women that women are even scared to come out about. Like there's a lot of domestic violence, right? At home. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, often that man is providing, unfortunately, a household for the woman, food, comfort if they have kids on top. And I think sometimes women have that fear of, well, if I call the police, what's going to happen next? Where am I going to stay? I have 2 kids. And I think a lot of times there's so much fear with what comes next after speaking out, what comes next, that they end up not, no one accepts that. No one wants that for themselves, but they almost think they're safer in that situation than doing something about it. And I think that happens a lot of women too, you know, in colleges too, that are being raped and there's nothing happening. And there was that trial. Oh my gosh, I forgot the boy's name.
The swimmer.
Yep. And nothing happened, no consequences at all. And things like that, you know, how do you think other women feel? You think they're going to come out about being raped after watching a trial like that unfold? So I think there's also those kinds of violences that never get out, that are never reported at all. So if we really look at, like, I'm sure if we looked at the stats of like all the violence against women reported, there's probably a way higher number than that of unreported violence against women.
Yeah.
There's
It's
also
a
the
big
issue of
number. It's a
And
big
it's a
number.
shame.
police
And
are
then,
able
like,
to self-report crimes
yep,
as well, so they can also be skewing numbers of domestic violence just so it doesn't seem as if crime is up.
off, right? Yep. And then, like you said about the men in charge, I wonder what the jury consists of. Who's biased? Like, who are they already in favor of before the trial even starts? Who are they automatically rooting for and defending for? The girl or the man? Definitely not the woman. No.
I think it also goes deeper than that. I'm very passionate about this subject from my own personal experience. As the woman who has been raped, and of course I want to put out that a huge portion of men have been raped too. There's been sexual assault on both genders, anyone who identifies as a different gender, or if they are, I'm forgetting the word because I'm all worked up. I don't identify with a particular gender. It's more than that. It's that the institutions lose money when females don't feel safe to go. So they silence you on purpose.
Right.
Wow.
And it's about money. It's not about you. I actually was in college, and on multiple occasions I was told, when I went to authority that was supposed to help me, that I shouldn't speak out because it was bad for the institution and no one would believe me. And I think and I know that I'm not alone in that, because I went and then I was a director of a nonprofit for those going through sexual assault and domestic violence. And perpetrators, whether they mean to or not, I choose to believe that all people have good and that therapy can help you. Sorry, passionate. Can help you like
Take your
digest.
time, man.
Perpetrators choose to pick on people who they can manipulate. For example, I worked with people who were with someone for a green card, and then all of their human rights were stripped from them in a domestic violence relationship, but they couldn't leave. I helped them leave because there are these amazing institutions out there to help you now. And I feel like us as a society, hopefully, is starting to learn from this. But yeah, it's set up against us as the survivors of the events. You're told to be quiet, and it's a burden that you take on, and you're not allowed to share.
Rachel, I have a question for you. When you were going to people, were they men mostly or women?
Men. I went to the police station. Now they have they've had better training, but they told me on several occasions I tried to get a restraining order. I tried everything, and on all occasions they told me that no one would believe me.
Because sometimes I've seen when people go to authorities, sometimes they would be women, and women would tell other women to keep quiet. So that's why I asked.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you saying that. There are now a lot of, and my boyfriend's in law enforcement. He is an incredible human. He is compassionate. He goes and seeks trainings to make sure that he is there for people and hearing them and what they need. And a lot of law enforcement now have people to help them, advocate for those who have been silent so many times, help find their voice. For those who've just gone through an incredibly traumatic event, how to go through that. They're called advocates. There's a bunch of different variations, but there is hope.
Thank you for sharing that, yo. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I wanna wrap up the show, but I wanna ask you guys for inspiration for women that are dealing with what they're dealing with, but they can express it, for women that are trying to, be themselves because it's a very difficult thing, and for women that are, just trying to make it day by day. So I want to hear some inspirational messages because I think we need it in these times. We're living through some tough times. I know our parents and our grandparents have, but we're living through some tough times, and I think a word of wisdom, an inspirational message, I think will be great. So I'm gonna start with Vanita, then we can just go like that. But anything you have to say, any inspirational message?
So what I will say is you are the love that you seek. And starting with loving yourself, knowing who you are, knowing your worth, this gives you the power to determine how you allow people to treat you, how you allow people to speak to you, communicate with you. When you have the thought in your mind and you know for sure who you are, you're not gonna let nobody play with you. You're not gonna let anybody treat you a certain way. You stay true to yourself. You have that thought in your mind that you are love and you are the blessing, and you provide value wherever you go. You're gonna win every time, you know.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you for sharing that. And before we move on, tell us a little bit about like what's coming up for you. What's on the horizon for Busy Vibe Time, and like how can the people stay in tune with your work?
So I've been extremely busy with I've done more studio photography. That's something that I have always wanted to get into. Mainly I've done outdoor stuff, but now I'm diving into studio photography. I'm learning about more terms, more things, getting more props, and I find new ideas all the time. I've become more inspired probably than I've ever been, and that's a blessing in itself. So vending season is coming up. I'm going to do the pop-up shops again. I'm actually going to Atlanta next month for the
Hey,
first
let's go.
time. So I'm gonna go out there and vend. I'm working on a portfolio book now with some of my recent stuff and some of my favorite shots of everything that I've done up until this point. And I'm going back to Hamden to do another pop-up shop. And I have plans for the zodiac signs. I'm trying to do birthday shoots for every zodiac sign. So that's a project that I gave myself this year. And it's
Yeah,
going well.
shout out to Taurus. Shout out.
No, my
Yes.
nephew's a Taurus and my sister's a Taurus. So I do
We're
love Taurus.
difficult.
Very
Yeah, we're
difficult.
difficult. We're
Yeah.
difficult. Yeah, we are.
My mom's a
I
Taurus.
got a little Gemini in me too, so it's like
Mhm.
it's a little off balance, but
Not too much
we
about
try.
Gemini. Not too
All
much.
right.
Not too
All
much.
right. All right. Illy, give us your inspirational message.
Um, I don't know if my message is geared specifically for women, however you kind of identify, but I think the only way people can really move forward is by attaining some emotional intelligence and self-awareness. Not being afraid to test things out outside of what you may have grown up in, some whatever traditional environment that was fed to you. There's no one way to grow or to heal. We're on an earth that's full of infinite amount of possibilities and how your life can play out. And the more you limit yourself to certain ideas or even the traditional structures from men and women that you feel is supposed to actually aid in your life. If it does, it does. It doesn't. Don't be afraid to step outside of that and actually explore. You limit yourself to the possibilities of where your life can head when you keep yourself to those ideas. And especially for those who have experienced sexual assault, men and women, non-binary, please, 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 find someone you're comfortable with being able to share if when you get to that moment where you are able to share, because it's not that simple. Trauma responses come in a variety of ways, and especially for men, don't be afraid to be able to reach out to people that will actually care and actually help you get the needle moving when it comes to getting justice for yourself when you're in that space, or even just needing help in your own healing and being able to unpack those experiences.
Thank you, thank you, Rachel. What about you? Inspirational message.
Wow. You both touched on points that I was thinking in my head. You're both, all of you are really strong and beautiful people, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity just to be amongst you and hear your thoughts and see through your lens for a moment. I think in general, knowing that life is not about what happens to you, it's how you react to it. And on the ocean of life, there'll be many waves, but there's also going to be a huge portion of the ocean underneath that you can remain calm and understand that as long as you center in yourself and know yourself, you'll be okay.
And Bella.
Yeah. I feel inspired, first of all, by what everyone's saying. And I think it's so right. Again, thank you for giving us this space, because it's not often that I have conversations like this. And I was just sitting here thinking like how different my life would be if I would have conversations like this more often. I think it's such a nice space to know that my thoughts and feelings are being listened to, are being backed up, right? I don't feel like scared to share or afraid. I think that's so amazing that we have the space to do this. And I hope that, other women have a kind of space like this too, where they can just freely share their feelings, experiences. For me, I think one thing that I'm working on is to not question myself. I feel like I question myself a lot, and then for days I'll regret, like, why didn't I say this, or why didn't I do that? Like, why didn't I defend my thoughts like in that moment? And then it's like it's never too late, but it's not like I'm going to go back and search that person out and be like, that day, here's what I wanted to say to you. So I think I'm working on that. I don't want to, sit with those feelings later on and regret the words I never said. I don't like that. I don't like that feeling. So that's one thing that I'm working on. I'm sure there's other people too that have gone through that. And just staying true to myself. That sounds so cliche, but that's really one thing that I'm just working towards achieving, is just being true to myself. That's all. Learning myself, being confident in who I am, not questioning my abilities. It's tough. Yeah, it's not easy being a woman, especially today, like we were all talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah, yo, I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day and taking your time out of your life to discuss these kind of matters, because a lot of we don't talk about this a lot. We don't talk about it a lot. It's not heard of in the media. A lot of women are not able to put themselves on a platform, and it's unfortunate because it shouldn't be like that.
Mhm.
And I appreciate you guys just being able to share and experience, and to let people understand that this is a matter that we need to continue to work towards, and we need to understand. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Just the
Thank
Thought
you.
Podcast. Yes, thank you guys. Just the Thought Podcast. I've been your host, Gray. Thank you so much for being on the show. Ladies, I appreciate you guys. We are out. Yes.